like this is wrong. Need to work on my light as well.
Just a little bit, because this part right here and this part,
I don't want to try it on this.
so they don't get as much bounce light as another part that's facing to the side or down. Let's make it a little brighter. It's pretty good.
Pretty good. Just silly guy.
What's great is the more realistic the piece is, the more you have to worry about it. But if you're doing a stylized piece, it's really up to you how you like to, how much level of detail you're willing to put into something. Which sort of, makes this whole thing a little more worthwhile, I think.
Oh, he's so wholesome. Ah! Oh. That's crazy. It's like little things that you wouldn't notice.
If you see me saving, that just means that I've been hurt before. Alright, that.
But this side would really just not get that much.
Not too shabby. Now, the last step. Now, if we take away the scene and that light, it still looks cool, as you can see. It still looks awesome by itself. It doesn't quite make as much sense because we got the bounce light from nowhere, apparently. So if we, put the stuff back, it makes way more sense, obviously. But now let's focus on...
Let's focus on something I'm nowhere near.
Something you might have noticed is that we were talking about a bit earlier is little grooves, little hatches, little cuts into the metal that we talked about. We're going to expand a bit more on that.
But if
This is one of the things that really sells.
this is here, is it going to reflect this?
Oh, that's armor. That's metal. That's metal for sure. Because if we grab the lightest part of the metal and we grab the darkest part of the metal, because this part's going to be pretty intense. So we grab the light part, make sure our brush is on pressure sensitivity. We're going to just give it some of these little dings, just to start with. Just for start. Make sure that these dings follow the direction of the metal. So if metal does this, make sure the dings do that too. Little grooves.
But really, I should look at dark metal too, because if her helm is like dark blackish color, would it not be?
Just giving this arm a little bit of flavor. Keep in mind pretty much where you put these, because this is only the first bit. Once we add the highlight or the shadow, you can do whichever you want first, honestly. We're going to add the opposite. So we're going to switch color to the darker side. And we're going to pay attention to where the light source is. Remember, if the light source is coming from up top, coming down, that means the bottom section of this little check mark is going to be light. The top section is going to be dark. We add these little, depending on the depth of the cut, we're going to add a little bit of dings, a little bit of grooves. Like that. These are very small, but they still apply. So the top section, if the light's coming from above, the shadow's on top. Remember that. Top section's going to get a little bit of bite. And feel free to add a couple extras, just just around.
That's just so cool.
Not too much.
Oops.
Just don't want to go crazy. Otherwise, I'll
Accidentally
take away
close my drawing.
the overall look. And we will leave the realm of cool characterizations and just go straight into, oh, okay, that's a little too much. So, just something to keep in mind.
That's what I feel like I've done on here.
Pressure sensitivity on at all times. In fact, most of the time whenever I work, I don't really like having pressure sensitivity on. It's just preference. But from time to time, it's the light source is hitting right there, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make the cuts nearest to the light source a little lighter. So they're not going to be, let me take that off.
That is so cool.
So they're not going to be, I'm not going to have these dark grooves in as much. So we're going to get a nice soft brush, make it nice and big. Drop the opacity, drop the flow a little bit. I'm just going to add these right here. Yeah. Now, typically speaking, where the metal curves, like these corners here, or these little lips right here, or whatever, that's where the metal gets the most damage, because that's almost the corner of the pieces is almost always where it's going to hit something when it's moving, when metal's moving against other metal and, like, armor, or when your sword hits a piece of metal or a piece of armor. It's mostly going to hit the corners here, and the corners typically brush up against stuff, almost like it's like your keychain. If you got a metal plate or something on your keychain, you'll notice that the edges get way more worn down. Real quick, I'm actually gonna take away a bit of this one because it's a little too much. Take away too much the love from the rest of the part. Like I said, you don't want these things to be too big and prominent, otherwise it takes away from the entire piece. But let's continue by adding a couple like that. We're gonna add some cuts. This metal often gets scraped and scratched. And I always like to start with these scratches and stuff. I always like to do the light one first and then make the shadow react to it. It's a personal preference. By no means is gospel, so just keep that in mind. Again, we don't want to make these things too uniform. We don't want them to be too... You don't want the lines to be too thick, too thin. They're going in random directions, pretty much. The same. It's going to be, remember, light source is going to determine where these cuts go. Light source is going to determine where the shadow and the highlights are.
How did he do the like wobble? Just blended it? That don't make no sense.
And if one line is really thin, you don't want to have a really big shadow and a tiny little highlight. You want them pretty much to be the same. And every highlight and every shadow doesn't need to have a corresponding thing to be. Like every highlight here does not need a shadow. For some of these really light ones, probably don't need it. But these kind of thicker ones, they could probably do with one. Let's lighten up the edges of this one a bit. So we can have the deep cut be near the middle of the cuts, more shallow near the edges. Alright, check it out. Alright, so there you go. That is an interesting way to do stylized metal. This is just my approach on how to handle like light reflections, bounce light and colors and whatnot for metal pieces. Again, this is stylized and not super realistic if you look at it. Clearly this is not some like hyper realistic piece of metal, and I hope that it's really cool. Hopefully it's enjoyable. That's just how I handle things. I mean, you'll probably end up handling things a little different, but if you have a view of maybe my and other artists' way of handling it, I think maybe it would give you a good boost on how to do it for yourself, or make your own kind of style of armor or whatever. Hopefully you found this video useful or entertaining. Feel free to leave a like if you found it so. And
Thank you so much to this guy.
This video helpful. That's a big one. didn't find the video helpful, comment below saying that you didn't. I would like a comment either way. I demand these things.
It's the gouache side.
Subscribe if you'd like to see more tutorials like this. I also do a lot of speed paints. Share with your friends and other artistic individuals that you think might benefit from this. And I'll see you in the next one.
Autistic individuals, that's crazy.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is 𝍊🋼🍊🍊, one word, and this is my free metal tutorial series. And I cover a different type and
Whoa, he's got so many different ones.
All for the most comprehensive understanding of the topic. Also, leaving a comment and then watching the next video in the line really tells YouTube that I'm doing a good job. So if you want to support my channel and encourage me to keep making these videos, that's one great way to do it. So thank you so much, and let's get started. Okay, so we're starting with iron on this video. So it is a more brittle, rough kind of metal. So it has the tendency to be chipped,
Yeah, I really like this
or
brush.
broken or flake away, and it's not as resistant to things like rust. So it won't be very reflective because it'll have all those little micro grooves.
This needs to be bigger.
And cuts and abrasions and raises and falls. So it's going to be a little more flaky, but like we're not really going to worry too much about the flakiness bit. We're going to be painting just a basic general stylized kind of like iron cube here, as you saw. So because it's not as reflective as like chrome or something, we're not going to be using pure white as our reflection. We're going to be using a very light cool color and a very light warm color. Because with iron, because it has a tendency to attract things like rust, and whenever you make a stylized piece of iron, typically speaking, like if you want to really show that it's iron, you gotta have a little bit of warmth in there just to say, okay, this is not like the highest quality metal. It's got a little bit of, you know, grime, a little bit of dirt, a little bit of rust involved. So we're gonna keep two sort of types of colors here. There's gonna be the cool colors and the warm colors, and this is just pretty much an iron thing for the most part. Things like steel, chrome, silver, that kind of platinum, you know, that kind of thing. They're gonna be a little more, well, maybe not platinum, anyway, but they're gonna be a little more shiny, a little more smooth, and that's gonna be probably more cool colors for the most part.
We're gonna be right back.
Of course, on your environment. See all this stuff right here? Metal is an exercise on how well you can see and analyze your environment, the colors around the piece of metal, which is one of the reasons metal is one of my favorite things to draw, to paint, because it's like a little funky, twisted, warped, beat up piece of mirror, in a sense. That lets you like, okay, so it's got a bit of reflection of the green here, got some blue up here, you know, maybe you've got the sun up here beaming down, all happy sun rays and stuff. That's metal. And that metal tells a story, and I really like it. So because we're starting with iron, we will be, as per usual, making a cube-ish shape first. So to make this really fast, we're going to come up here to our lasso tool, right up here, top left. Now, if it's not this lasso tool, the polygonal lasso tool, click and hold. This is in Photoshop, by the way, but most programs have a lasso tool of some kind. But you're going to click and hold, come over here, and you're going to select polygonal lasso tool, and this is going to make it so you select little shapes, little lines, if you will. So we're going to make a cube-like shape. Corner, slight rise, because it's going to be sort of facing down. Come back down, there, slight dip, and then connected. That's our cube-like structure. Now we're going to pick one of our base, more middle kind of colors here for our little base here. And I'm gonna start with warm. I'm just gonna paint that in. And that is our base. And we'll be adjusting this a little later. Depending, because like I said, iron's pretty brittle. We're gonna chop it up just a smidge, just gonna give it a couple dings, beat it up a little bit, maybe a couple cracks, who knows. We'll figure it out. But because we have this shape here, we now have 3 planes to paint. We have our darker side, we have our lighter side, and our middle side. These are our planes to paint on this surface. Now remember, metal's very reflective, so we're going to be looking at what this side is looking at. So it's going to see the grass and it's going to see the background. Not much of the light source, because we like to do these. Our light source is top left